Hey everybody, so I'd like to take an opportunity to shoot a follow-up video to a video I recently posted up on QQ channel. It was a video where I basically talked about how you no longer own your computer because, well, Microsoft acts like they own it by force installing BIOS updates, let alone quote-unquote forcing you to use a Microsoft account just to use the thing. And let's not forget, force retiring your computer, for example your Windows 10 PC, thanks to the Microsoft Elite Class system requirements for Windows 11. And that video has definitely gotten some attention. It's gotten over 2K views in the first day or two that I posted it, which I'm glad, because it needs to get out there, in my opinion. And I've read through your comments on that video, and lots of good comments and lots of, well, some negative comments too, but that's just a given. I want to address some things real quick. So, number one, first and foremost, that update that you saw in Windows Update was not optional. It was mandatory. Literally, I went into Windows 10's settings app and I clicked on Windows Update and bam, there it was. Dell firmware update, pending install. So it wasn't a matter of me going into optional updates and clicking install. No sir, or no ma'am. It was literally there. It was mandatory, and it would have installed on its own outside of active hours. So probably the only way to stop it from installing would have been to just jerk the power cord on the system before updates began to install. And that's kind of the big concern I have. Is I'm not against Microsoft presenting firmware updates in Windows Update, but they should be optional. They should not be mandatory. They should allow the user to make the discretion of when or if to install a BIOS update. Because I'm kind of old-fashioned. Generally, I only update my BIOS when I need to. Like, for example, if I'm putting a new CPU that requires a BIOS update, flash the BIOS. Simple as that. That's generally the only reason I do a BIOS flash, is because maybe if I'm swapping a new CPU and the motherboard needs a BIOS flash in order to support that new CPU. And of course there are other reasons too, and yes, there are security reasons at times. But by updating the BIOS, to me, has not been something that's generally just been done just for the heck of it. It's generally done to correct a known issue, or if, let's say, you're upgrading your CPU and you need a newer BIOS with the updated microcode. Sure. The user would then have the control of when to install that BIOS update. So, for example, they can install it at an optimal time when, let's say, there's not as high of a risk for power failure. And for example, it's almost 1 in the morning actually. Yesterday we had really nasty weather here. Very atypical for January in this area. And of course, I'm located in the southeast United States, and we had some very bad weather. Lots of winds, flooding rains, tornadoes, all of that good stuff. And as I'm shooting this video, there's actually been some pretty big wind gusts outside in the past few minutes. Think about that. It's late at night. The average person, I'm not the average person, would be asleep right now in bed, and their computer would probably be outside of active hours. Windows 10 or Windows 11 would probably say, okay, it's time to install some updates. And of course, Microsoft doesn't pay attention to the weather. It just knows what time of day it is and knows that it's outside of active hours. And let's say that computer, that Dell desktop computer, had a BIOS update in Windows Update. Let's say it downloads and installs that update, and when the system reboots and begins flashing its firmware, a tree branch blows into a power line up the road, causing an old circuit recloser to trip, causing your lights to blink out for about a few seconds. You don't have to have an outage. All you have to have is a blink, just enough for the computer to lose power, and you could end up in serious trouble. Now, of course, yes, modern computers, some of them do have BIOS recovery, and that's good. But you shouldn't rely on that as, you know, a safeguard. You should treat it, in my opinion, you should treat it as you always have. Install BIOS flashes with extreme caution. Only do it when it's necessary to fix a known issue, or let's say to update the CPU microcode, stuff like that. And of course, when you look in the comments on that video, you'll see stories of people who had bad experiences from these forced updates. And interestingly enough, apparently it's also something that happens with Linuxes too. I didn't know that, which I think that's even more crazy. But I think the people who were talking about Linux reported that Linux gave them control of when to install that BIOS update. They weren't forced to do it like with Microsoft Windows, because again, you don't own your computer. Microsoft Corporation owns it, because they decide when firmware updates get applied. They decide how you can use your computer, how they want you to use your computer. They decide which browser they want you to use. They decide when your computer becomes obsolete, when you must buy a new computer to use the next version of Windows because the current version of Windows is no longer supported, or you can spend money on ESUs. I mean, Microsoft would be happy to take your money. I mean, it's stuff like that, and I think some of the people probably missed the point of that video, but BIOS updates should never be mandatory in Windows Update. They should not be mandatory. They should be optional, and they should be a very, very noticeable warning message that will display when the user clicks the update to select to install it. Because most people don't know this. They don't know the importance of why your computer should not have a power interruption when you're flashing your BIOS, for goodness sakes. So yeah, I did not get video footage of that Dell system installing the BIOS update, but it did it. It did it, and it did it successfully. It took a few minutes, and I was a little antsed up when it was doing it, because I was like, oh geez, don't let the power flash or anything like that. Although our power here does not really have hardly any issues with going out or blinking, but it does happen from time to time, and you never know when it's going to happen. I mean, it could happen during this video, which maybe it won't, but just saying. So yeah, I just wanted to take a moment to try to clear some stuff up about that video. The key important thing is BIOS updates should not be forced in Windows Update. They should be optional. And also, Microsoft, they need to cut it out with these elite class system requirements for Windows 11. Allow computers that are a little bit older than 2018 to be able to upgrade to the next version of Windows, because I think computers from 2015, 2016 should have a little bit longer chance of life, in my opinion. And although yes, you can get around the Microsoft account requirement to set up an account on Windows 11, they make it difficult. They do make it difficult to bypass that, and it should not be that way. They should allow you to set up your computer using a local account. I mean, it's so ridiculous. Like, don't even get me started on that. Anyways, that wraps it up for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Hey everybody. Thanks for watching this video from QCreator channel. If this is your first time, please subscribe to the channel and tick the bell so you get notified of a new video I post. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, leave a comment, and share this video as well as the channel with your friends to get the word out. In addition, I have a second YouTube channel, that's CubeCompMTDX. Again, I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you so much for your support.